It may be the offseason for the BYU football program. That does not mean that we can't catch up with a good friend of the podcast, and that is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Connor Pay. We'll talk about how he is doing during the offseason, what the team is doing, I guess, overall, and also he looks forward to as the summer progresses. We're getting to all of it ahead on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The motto is your team every day, and as such, we are your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Think about that. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. All right, let's welcome in now a team captain for the BYU football program and a good friend of the podcast, Connor Pay, back on the Locked On Cougars podcast. And Connor, I'm going to start today's show. There's the old adage as an offensive lineman about putting guys on skates when you're dominating them in the trench. But what are the chances we're going to see you on actual skates playing for the now newly formed Utah Hockey Club in the NHL?
0% chance. I'm terrible on skates. I will have a lot of fun going and watching their games, but I will not be participating. The last time I did it, it did not go well. I was going at 0.2 miles an hour most of the time, and people were literally skating circles around me, and it sucked. So I don't anticipate ever putting skates on again in the foreseeable future. So
you and me can go just sit in the stands and watch these guys do incredible things on skates. How about that?
Deal.
I like that plan a lot better. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time as always to join the show. But let's start here. How is the offseason going for you, and what's new, if anything?
It's going really well. I mean, we're technically on break right now as a team. And we come back officially on May 13th, so next Monday, and start our 12-week summer program leading up to training camp. And so this is kind of like the 1 month out of the year. I guess the break's about 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. This is the one 3-week period where they're like, okay, plan your vacations for this window, like with your families and all that stuff. If guys want to go home for a couple weeks because the semester ended a couple weeks ago, and then for those who aren't participating in spring classes, they're able to spend some time at home. Or for those even who are in spring classes, they usually offer more online type classes during spring as well. So guys have a little more flexibility in their schedule to be able to go home and see their families, take vacations. So, it's been really good. I've been at the facility most of the break, because, our O-line GA, Braden Kearsley, took a job at a college as a run game coordinator and an O-line coach. And, none of us wanted him to go, but we also knew that he was too good to not get offered some jobs this offseason. So we've been a little shorthanded. So I've been helping with some administrative stuff and, getting some things ready for when we all come back in May. And so we can hit the ground running when summer comes and get all the O-line guys, up to speed leading into training camp. So I did take one weekend to go visit my sister in Los Angeles. That's kind of an annual thing that I do. But most of the time it's just been here working out, with the strength staff can come and open the weight room for us, but that's about all they can do. They're not allowed to be coaching us right now and stuff because we have some required time off. But I've just been in there, working out and working on some stuff in the offices too. So
are we going to add student assistant coach to your title pretty quick? Is that what it sounds like?
I don't know. Maybe. I think I should. I don't know. I should be on salary at this point. But
tell Coach Woods he's got to pony up if he really wants you to do all the work he's having you do, right?
I know. Well, he's going to tell me that BYU needs to pony up in order for him to be able to afford that. So
good point. Good point. Hey, they got big.
We'd have to go all the way to the top.
Hey, they got Big 12 money now. If you see some of the
reports, that's true.
In the basketball,
we know how much Kevin Young is getting paid.
Yes,
allegedly. We know, there's money there. Hey. Let's expand the coaching staff, and the assistants, give them the help they need, like the other Power 4 schools. Let's get up to par, BYU. Let's freaking do this thing.
I think they're going that direction. I think it may take a little
100%.
But
there's been so many changes, even just in the last year. And obviously with BYU, things take a little bit longer, but they're going way faster than they normally do with a lot of this stuff. So definitely trending upward, that's for sure. Or I guess it looks like this on the screen. I'll go that way.
Well, I think Cougar fans are excited to hear you say that, obviously. But the other question I think that Cougar fans have is, what are the chances that you're going to be suiting up for Kevin Young in the BYU basketball program, a la Caleb Lohner making that transfer to Utah and deciding to play football and basketball?
I don't know. Baseball was the one that was far more likely for me than basketball. I think I'm a pretty good basketball player. I'm okay. I'm decent. I was a nice role player on my high school team, but we had a lot of guys at my high school who were very good, and so I was not a starter. I was just along for the ride. But and the old hitting coach at BYU, back when I was in high school for baseball, I can't remember his name, but they offered me a walk-on spot to come and actually DH and play baseball here as well, because I was already on football scholarship. And that a few guys have done that in the past, like Jaron. But just seeing their experiences and talking to some of the guys about it, it's pretty challenging physically to play two very different sports. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to focus on football. So unfortunately, the basketball court is not in the cards for me. But maybe I'll get granted an extra year or two, and I'll come play baseball a little bit, maybe.
Well, okay, you're a lefty, so are we talking like you like a Big Papi over here, like as a lefty hitter, DH type?
Yes, I would be a hitter. Yep.
Okay. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. David Ortiz made a very healthy living at DH for years.
It's true. You're right.
One other question real quick, just on in terms of some of the, as we go back and forth here. What was your initial reaction? Kingsley Suamataia getting drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, and Andy Reid dipping back into his BYU roots to bring in an offensive tackle. What'd you make of Kingsley ending up with the Super Bowl champs?
I mean, I haven't had a chance to talk to him about it. I haven't talked to him in a couple months, but I'm really happy for him. Really happy for him and for his family. And I think Kansas City will be a really good fit for him. I think Andy Reid is someone who's been close to the program for a long time, who's close with Kalani. So he knew what he was getting in Kingsley, and when their time came, they pulled the trigger. And so I'm really fired up for him. I hope he's able to go in and do well and contribute early. So
I'll have to wait and see. All right. There's been another addition to the offensive line room for BYU. We'll get to in a moment. Got to get Connor's thoughts on that. We'll also get into your guys' questions as well. Our Locked On Cougars Insider Group had a lot of great questions as well. We'll dig into those momentarily as we continue on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL with their playoffs ongoing, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Think about that, my friends. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more with any winning $5 bet. It's as simple as that. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. The best part is, if you're not into the NBA or the NHL, you also can check out Major League Baseball. You got futures odds on NFL and college football as well. They've got it all for you guys. Once again, at FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. It's all brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Continuing on now with Connor Pay, BYU team captain. And Connor, you guys have added a new addition to the offensive line room. And I was told that I butchered his name on our Monday podcast when I talked about him. And according to the comment on my YouTube video, I have been told that Austin, his last name is how you pronounce it is, let me find this. Okay, if I can find it here. Of course, I pull up in the wrong spot. Leausa. Is that right?
Yes, that sounds right. That's how I said it when I met him. He didn't correct me, so it could be wrong still, but I think Leausa is how you pronounce it. So
okay, well, give me your sense. I know that you obviously you're involved in some of the recruiting aspects of this one in terms of like player visits and the like. What do you make of Austin and him coming up from Southern Utah?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good fit. I had the chance to hang out with him a little bit on Saturday, and a lot of those visits are kind of more, at least for me and some of the other guys that go, are kind of more to see how he would jive with the room personality-wise, to see if he would gel well, because they wouldn't be on these recruiting visits if they weren't capable. Mm-hmm. And so Coach Woods wouldn't bring him to us and have us interact with him if he couldn't do it on the field. So we kind of spend more time just getting to know each other and seeing if there would be chemistry there between the group of us. So, Caleb and I went, and Joe Brown was there, and a couple of the tight ends, and the LJ, and we were just hanging out with him. And I think he's going to be a really good fit for our room. Just his mentality and his maturity, and his personality. I think he's going to fit well with all of us. And even just hanging out on Saturday, we were at Top Golf and just hanging out, and he was already bugging me about, hey, talk to me about some scheme stuff, like, do you have some terms and calls we can go over that stuff? Just even on the couches at Top Golf, he wanted to talk ball and get to know it already. And so for me, that's a really, really good sign. So.
Well, and that brings you to our first question from our Locked On Cougars Insider group. It comes from Mark, and he says this: one of the biggest complaints the last couple of years is that the offensive line is he assumes because of all the transfers in and out and never really having seen them play as a cohesive unit. Does Connor think that they are better off now, even with Leausa coming in from Southern Utah, in terms of the cohesiveness?
Yes, I think so. And I think a lot of that has to do with, Coach Wood's system makes that a lot easier too. Where our rules and our techniques are concrete, like they are not changing. And so obviously there's going to be a learning curve with Austin a little bit, getting used to being in combos together or in pass protection, that type of stuff. And hopefully, that's something we can work throughout training camp. And, but with Coach Wood's system, it's pretty easy to plug somebody in, because as long as you know that he's studied the playbook hard and studied the system hard, you know what they're going to do. That versus this look, this is what we're supposed to do. He's supposed to take this step. He's supposed to take or use this strike. And that allows everything to sync up and time up and fit up a little better. And so I think that'll help as well. But I think also having the whole summer will be helpful as well. Obviously, ideally with transfers, January I think is the best time of year for transfers to come in, just because then you get all winter workouts to spend time together. You get all of spring ball to kind of feel each other out and see how things go and build that cohesiveness a little bit. But the nice thing is that he's a multi-year starter, so he's done it before, even if it was at the SUU level. There's at least some playing experience there, which will help accelerate the process a little bit. And so I think we need to have a really good summer, but I also think that, Coach Wood's system helps a lot with that, and just feeling out his personality and his desire to learn and wanting to get right into the playbook, figure everything out, know everything that's going on. That's going to make that 10 times easier.
Well, and I think I speak for most Cougar fans, it's very cool to hear that he was already wanting to talk ball and get a sense of what the scheme was like when you guys were supposed to be having fun at Top Golf. I think that screams that this guy is locked in and wants to get going right away.
Yeah, for sure.
The other question that came in here was that do you have any experience with him before this? Speaking of Austin Leausa, because I know that you guys came out in a similar period in terms of your high school careers. Both of you served admissions and the like. Do you have any experience with him previously?
No, actually. So I didn't know him. He's a year older than me.
Okay.
So I think he was class of 2017. I was class of 2018, and I one of my close buddies played at SUU. And so I knew of him that way, but we had never met each other or interacted at all until this weekend.
All right. I got a question here from Weston, and I think this is right in your wheelhouse, Connor, because I know that you don't hold back when it comes to your opinion on things. That you've proven that time after time on this podcast. Weston asked this question. With all the hype and excitement surrounding the BYU men's basketball team right now, is the football team feeling a little bit like the redheaded middle child out there? They absolutely shouldn't feel that way in my mind, but love and excitement should be permeating it. But what could the university and fans do to support the football team and their success better?
No, I think, I don't really care, that much. I think the excitement around basketball is warranted. I think, obviously, with how well they did during the season, and then the disappointing first-round loss, then Coach Pope dipping out of nowhere, and then, not knowing who we're going to hire, and then being able to pull a great coach from the NBA, there deserves to be a little bit of excitement about that, and so we don't feel weird about that in any way. We're excited for our boys, and, being able to retain some of those guys like Richie and Dallin, there should be excitement around the basketball team too, but now it's their off season too, right? And so there's probably not going to be much coming out of the basketball program for a while, outside of maybe some transfers and Coach Young finishing up his staff. But no, I don't think there's any weird feelings between the media being excited that cool things are happening with basketball. And it's and so I don't think the fans need to do anything in particular, right? Just be ready to show up and show out when the season starts. We're more than happy to kind of work in silence right now and kind of be in the background preparing for that season, and then to be able to come out then and play really well for you guys. So I don't think the fans need to do anything. I don't think definitely no weird feelings or anything like that. Like it don't. Doesn't bother me very much. Maybe it bothers some of our teammates, but I don't know.
Well, I'll interject one thing. There was somebody connected to the program last year, Connor, that when the preseason poll came out for the football team, so this goes back to last July down there in Dallas, we were going back and forth. This person, I'm just not going to break confidences, but they essentially said, I hope we get picked last. They wanted you guys to be picked last because they wanted to put that chip on your shoulder. And I think that screams to kind of what you point right there is like, you're excited for the basketball team to be taking some of the headlines because it allows you guys to essentially go about your business and just get things done behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, everyone in the world thinks we're going to suck. And that's everybody in the media world and, around the Big 12, probably a good amount of the fans too. They think we're going to suck. And so obviously that definitely that's definitely something we pay more attention to than like basketball getting more attention than us, is that like, hey, this is our peers thinking we're going to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. And if you're a competitor at all, like that stings a little bit and that makes you a little bit upset. And and I think that's been channeled into a really good offseason so far, and a really good, really physical spring ball, because we did have a little bit of that chip on our shoulder, and we were reminded often by coaches and others how bad we were expected to be this year, and and just trying to go out and prove people wrong.
All right. One more question here I've got from Andy. It says this, do players like Connor keep their eyes on the transfer portal for guys that could bolster their position groups, or is that strictly on the coaches?
No, I think arguably it's more on the players. because there's no rules about me trying to get people to leave their schools before they hit the transfer portal. Like coaches can't reach out to players until they're officially in the portal. I can reach out to whoever I want to.
Okay.
So all season long, I'm actively trying to pull people off rosters.
Okay.
But no, and I, when our college careers are all said and done, I can tell you about some of my buddies that every single year after the season, I'm like, dude, you just got to come to BYU. Just some of my friends on other teams, but no, I definitely keep my eye open. I think for me, it's definitely a lot more like my buddies. Like if they're feeling about some type of way about where they're at, or if transferring is on the table for them. I'm not actively looking at like the actual NCAA transfer portal. Like maybe I'll see something on Twitter or someone will send something to me of like, hey, this offensive lineman hit the portal or something. And then, if I have a connection to them through a friend or something, then maybe I'll reach out to them. But no, I think it's definitely a lot more on the coaches once that player is in the portal, because then coaches can reach out to them. They got free reign. But I think before they actually enter the portal, it's a lot more on the players. So
okay, well, I think that lends some insight into how things operate, because you guys can chat back and forth amongst players. But
I'm just texting with my friends. Like, what's the NCAA gonna do? Like they're gonna suspend me for texting my buddy and saying, "Hey, I want to be teammates." Like, well,
the NCAA has like no teeth at all right now, so I don't think
they're losing their grip. And so I'm feeling more and more confident in doing whatever I want. So
as you should. All right. There's been another quarterback added to the roster as well for the BYU football program. We'll dig into that. What Connor makes of McCae Hillstead being added to the mix. We'll get to all this and roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off for a moment here. We're going to pause for a second and talk about Monopoly Go. I know you're saying, Jake, you talk about this all the time, flag on the play, but there's so much good stuff in this game. I want you guys to take advantage of Monopoly Go. You can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you can work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And more importantly, there's many more things to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Hilarious emojis for when you want to turn tail and become the heel for your friends when you want to taunt them when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults or ruin the game for them. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of them include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or playing a robot pachinko machine. All of it seemingly changes daily. There's always new timed events to help you win big, massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies as well. So take advantage of the opportunity now and have some fun with our friends at Monopoly Go. Get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play or the App Store. Once again, that's free on the Google Play or App Store. And as I like to say, let's get back to it. And game on. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Rolling on here with Connor Pay, final stanza with our chat with him here. And Connor, a great question coming in here from Bradley. Says, can you ask him what he knows about McCae Hillstead and how he feels about McCae being added to the mix alongside ostensibly Jake Retzloff and Gary Bohannon in the QB Derby this fall?
Yeah. I didn't know a ton about him before this. I watched him in high school a little bit because my younger brother played against him quite a bit while he was at Skyridge. I didn't follow him a bunch while he was at Utah State last year, but from what I've heard, played well and did some good things. But yeah, I didn't know we had room for more quarterbacks, but I guess we do. And so, and obviously a few of them have hit the portal. Like Nick earlier a couple months ago, and then Ryder recently, and I hope they can find, great schools and go have real successful careers. Going to miss those guys. But, yeah, I don't know. A lot of quarterbacks on the roster. But I think, having, played before, I think McCae can come in and, probably work his way up pretty fast because of that. And, kind of fit himself right in there with Trayson behind Jake and Gary. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. And I think I'm trying to remember. I don't know how many years of eligibility does he have? 3, 4?
He's got 3 more.
Okay. So he's got time.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. And the funny thing about this, Connor, I said this on the podcast when the news came out about him. I called his first ever career start in high school. He's a sophomore.
Oh, really?
at Sky Ridge. And I'm not going to lie, he's not a very big dude today. He is so much bigger now than he was as a sophomore in high school. He was 150 pounds that game, Connor. I would be stunned. The crazy thing about it was I didn't know much about him. I'd heard he was a good player, and I was like, okay, we'll see how he does. He just absolutely lit the world on fire, to use that expression. It was like, okay, this kid is absolute dynamite. The only thing that held him back, honestly, is the fact that he's 5'10", $180 or whatever he weighs.
That's true. That'll be interesting to see, because I'm 6'5" and I play center at BYU because our tackles are 6'8", and so that'll be interesting. Well, but obviously he's done fine. Yeah, so I'm looking up his stats right now. Now I'm curious.
Yeah, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but the kid can play ball. There's no doubt about that. All right, a couple other questions here before we wrap up here. Good question here from Andrew, and we'll ask you this. Great NFL caliber offensive linemen are considered, as he says, nasty, violent, and aggressive. How can the BYU offensive line best cultivate that type of mentality, which is usually more common with defensive linemen?
I think that's something you got to do every day.
Okay.
That's the way you have to attack every single day, is with that mentality. And I think, that's something Coach Woods has been really big on, and kind of trying to inject that mentality into the group, so that way it's not just one or two of us trying to get the whole group going. It's coming from the coach too, and then it kind of just festers in a good way around the offensive line too. And I think it's really easy to be nasty and aggressive when you know exactly what you're doing too. When you don't have to hesitate, like, oh crap, am I doing this right, or am I blocking the right guy? And I think a lot of the progress we made mentally over spring ball kind of allowed us to play that way a little more, because it's really hard to be nasty and aggressive when you're wondering what you're supposed to do on each play. So I think all of those things, and I think that's something we have to continue to build throughout the summer.
All right, Josh asked this question, kind of building off that question. So at this point in the offseason, does Connor feel better about the offensive line's pass protection or run blocking being a strength right now?
That's a good question. If I had to go off of spring ball, I think there were good days and bad days in both of those areas, but I'd probably say we definitely made the most progress in the run game. That's for sure. But also, when you start at the bottom, the only way to go is up. So, I would say overall we probably ran the ball a little better in spring ball than we pass protected, and I think part of that has to do with, like, Coach Wood's pass protection is a little different than what we're used to. So I think just getting used to that technique and the way we do things. And so I think it definitely improved as spring ball went on. But I don't know. I think because we've always been a really high level pass protecting team, every year I've been here, we've been one of the top pass protecting teams in the country. And so, I think we're probably overall, we're still probably better pass protectors overall, just because of the level we've been at. But, I think it's getting more even now as we went through spring ball. At least that's my feeling.
All right, 3 more questions, rapid fire here. Last couple. So first one, Byron. Does Connor think the offensive line still needs more bodies, or does that room have sufficient numbers in his mind now?
I think I'm assuming that is in reference to the transfer portal.
Yes, it is.
I think we could use 1 or 2 more.
Okay.
And I think that's something that Coach Woods and A-Rod have both said, publicly, that we wanted to bring in, 1, 2, 3-ish, just to kind of fill out the depth a little bit. Just because after kind of, the first 4 guys, there's not a lot of experience. And there's a lot of just young guys. And so I think just bringing in a couple more experienced guys, like bringing in Austin, was nice. And, and hopefully maybe we can bring in 1 more just to kind of help give us the depth a little bit we need, just a little bit of cushion. And so I think even if we just brought in one more, we'd be more than okay at this point.
All right. Next question comes in from Taylor. He asked this, and I'm gonna kind of couch it with another thing. Danny Saili, I think, stunned a lot of people with his transfer. He officially committed to Arkansas. A bit of a surprise on that front. But the question from Taylor is more on this point: what makes the BYU defense and what Jay Hill is running difficult to go against for you as an offensive line?
I think just the aggression and the variability.
Okay.
Because like we know they're going to blitz, and they're going to blitz a lot, and they're going to blitz in a lot of different ways. And so I think when that is combined with players who can execute it properly, like that can be kind of difficult to deal with, where, they line up in their same base looks a lot, but they could bring 7 different dudes from different spots all out of those base looks. And so, I think just knowing that they're going to bring the heat, and they're going to bring it in a lot of different ways, especially for me at center, when I'm trying to, I'm reading the second level and the third level, trying to key on what they're going to do. And, don't tell Coach Hill this, but I feel like I figured it out a little bit by the end of spring ball, where I could, the linebackers were getting upset because I would say, you're blitzing or you're not blitzing. I know who you're covering. Like, just drop out. But I think just that aggression and the variability makes that defense challenging.
Were you legitimately calling guys like, say, you ain't coming? Like,
yeah. There was a couple times I got Harrison Tagger where he was like coming up to the line of scrimmage, and I was like, dude, get out of here. Like, I know you're not blitzing. Or I just saw the look, and I had seen it before this spring, and I'll be like, all right, the D tackle's slanting here, Harry's blitzing the B gap, and then he'd be like, what are you doing? All mad at me.
I'm doing my job, man. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then I'll go over and start chirping at Coach Anderson too, because he played center as well, and I'll be like, tell your defense to stop telegraphing it,
That's awesome.
So Coach Anderson's a baller. It's been really fun having him hanging around during spring ball.
Yeah, Gary, he is a character, but he is a fantastic coach to boot. I meant to ask you, were you surprised by Danny's exit, by the way? I should have let you answer that question.
A little bit. I wasn't expecting it. But I kind of knew that he that could have potentially be an option. Obviously bummed out that it did end up that way, and I wish him all the best at Arkansas, and hopefully that place is a better fit for him and he can thrive there. But it caught me by surprise a little bit, and so I kind of texted him. I was like, hey, what's going on, man? And I just he had nothing but good things to say. Just made a personal decision for his career, and I get it. And so wish him all the best. But yeah, I'm bummed out. Him and I became good buddies since he got here in January. So I'm bummed to see him go, but I wish him all the best.
All right, we'll give the final word to Josh here. He says this: has Connor experienced any sense of validation so far regarding his decision to come back for one more year before heading to the NFL? And if so, can he share what happened that has given him that validation?
1,000%. I felt pretty confident about it after my first couple meetings with Woods while he was being interviewed. And then once he got hired, and just meeting with him and him just talking ball with me and teaching me. And I've gotten more and more comfortable with the decision the longer, we've worked together. I feel like I made more progress this spring ball than probably the last 2 seasons.
Okay.
And I think a big thing for me in my NFL evaluations and in Coach Woods' evaluations of me is force output. Whereas I'm like my football IQ is high. I'm gonna be on the right person every play, but moving the line of scrimmage is something that I didn't do well enough last year. Whereas I was on the right person and I was moving them maybe laterally sometimes, but that force output to move the line of scrimmage forward was one of the knocks for me in terms of the NFL, and that's also one thing that Coach Woods has noticed. And so we emphasized that big time, and he made a couple technique adjustments for me in the run game that has helped a lot with that particularly, and being able to get initial movement off the line of scrimmage, because it's so much easier for the running back to make his reads and make his cuts if he's got 4 or 5 yards of space before he makes contact with anybody. He can't make a cut if I'm a yard in the backfield. And so, I think especially in run, because I feel like I've always been a really good pass protector. That's been one of my strengths as a player, in my opinion. But I think Coach Woods really helped me this spring on the run game side of things. Dialing in the technique a little bit as far as, maybe even a couple inches on a step, or just the footwork here, or maybe adjusting my hand placement. And it's made a big difference for me. So every day going through spring ball was further validation that, I made the right decision in coming back to BYU.
Well, I think Cougar fans are excited to have you back, obviously, and we're looking forward to the season ahead.
Some of them.
Some of them, sure. That's a good point. But Connor, always appreciate your time. We'll do this a few more times throughout the rest of the spring/summer, and then we'll get into fall camp, and we'll go back to essentially going weekly with you. Sound good?
Cool. Let's do it.
All right, so that is Connor Pay. Big thank you to him for taking the time. As always, big thank you to all of you for your support of the podcast. As always, please continue to subscribe, rate, review, share your good feelings with Connor Pay via social media if you want to as well. And of course, we will be back with you guys again tomorrow, right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.